Let's talk about significance at work. The motivation and the energy that you get from your significant strength in work is deeply rooted in the recognition that you get from others on the work that you do. Now, for everyone who I've worked with who has significance in their top 10, on the surface or at first glance, this strength can feel shallow or self centered, but I see it more as being purpose driven with an interest in what those around you want or appreciate or recognize to be important. So it's a combination of your own internal values and mission and focus and knowing what other people are going to recognize you for at the end of the day. Now, if you're an individual contributor or a direct report who has a manager and you're not managing other people, a good manager for you will realize that this is a really high motivator for you and make sure to give you assignments and, more importantly, praise in a way that lets you know your contributions are not only seen by those around you, but are also highly appreciated and valued by the team or the organization as a whole. You are not necessarily one to like do things behind the scenes or in the shadows, not necessarily because you just want attention, but because when you do something outside of the scope of your job description, or you go above and beyond on a project or an assignment, you need to know that what you did was seen by others as inherently valuable. And so if you're not receiving that feedback, you're probably not going to go above and beyond in that area in the future because it's not being recognized, and therefore you're not gaining energy from doing it. Now, with this in mind, as an individual contributor, you kind of have the potential to burn bright and burn out, especially if the work that you do and like what you're doing in the name of excellence and exceeding expectations isn't being recognized or valued by those around you. Now, there's part of this that is like communicating this need to a leader. But if you work in an environment or for a leader or a manager that is stingy with praise or recognition, you may be more likely to approach burnout because that is something that you inherently need. Now, one way you can avoid this is not to kind of put all of your eggs in one basket with your boss. Find others in the organization who recognize your effort and impact. Find out different ways or different arenas or outlets for this particular strength outside of work to kind of satisfy that need. Or consider a new work environment with this strength in mind. Always an option. But I do think that if you can find individuals within the organization who are willing to understand your strength and willing to kind of provide feedback, positive and negative, or positive and needing improvement, and that can satisfy you, then you should be good to go. You don't necessarily need it to be a boss or authority figure, but I do find that sometimes people are constantly seeking that approval of that boss or authority figure, and it kind of can get in the way of the actual work they're doing or cause them to move more toward burnout than we would like. Now, something about you is that you are likely always seeking more, above and beyond, taking on more than others, et cetera, which really can be an incredible trait, especially in a work environment. You are likely not satisfied by mediocrity because part of this strength for you, beyond doing things really well and getting recognition for that, is also about building your legacy. Legacy is very important to you as someone who has high significance. You are really interested in doing work that impacts others in ways that will, in theory, outlast you and have some sort of positive legacy. Now, as with all strengths and just all things, there's kind of a light side and a dark side or a shadow side to things. So one thing to look out for when it comes to this mentality of always seeking more, never being satisfied, et cetera, is that to others, this can be exhausting, to be honest. And it can be exhausting, especially if you expect this of them too, when this is not their particular strength. to them, it can feel a little bit like nothing is good enough. And especially if you're a leader, this can quickly go from motivating your team to frustrating and burning them out. Some of your team members are probably just fine with doing what needs to be done, meeting expectations without really drawing a lot of attention to themselves or the work that they've done, and without the desire or need to go above and beyond. The belief that we need to go above and beyond has been really ingrained, particularly into the millennial generation. And for you, that's great. That's energizing for you. But for a lot of other people, it's not. So especially if you are a manager, you need to be very clear on what are the actual expectations. And when people meet those expectations, great. Recognize them for that. But getting disappointed or frustrated when people don't go above and beyond and do more is not really a fair expectation of the people around you, especially those that do not have significance high in their top strengths. As I mentioned, feedback is really important to you, so request feedback often in work in appropriate ways and at appropriate measures, not all the time on every single thing, but maybe more often than other people would. You're really driven by impressing others, and getting and making sure you're getting consistent feedback on your work and your actions will actually help you know what's the best way to show up, to move forward, and ultimately show out in your work. Now, we've touched on a couple of sort of shadow sides of significance, but one specific blind spot I want to point out, especially in the work environment, is that when your significance is overfiring, at times that can lead you toward people-pleasing tendencies. And when I say people-pleasing, I mean people-pleasing in the sense that you are putting yourself last, you are taking on too much, you're burning yourself out. You inherently have a little bit of this people-pleasing that is positive and energizing for you until it isn't, until it's too much. So to avoid this, I would really encourage you to become clear on your vision and your goals. Keep them somewhere that you can easily access them, and check in when you're saying yes to too many things and to too many people, and really see how those requests that you're getting, that you are feeling the need to say yes to, how are those things actually moving you toward the vision and goals that you've laid out for yourself, and how are they not? Because if they're not, and it's an option in your work environment, right? Sometimes in the work environment, you get told to do things and you can't really be like, sorry, that does not align with my vision. But in a work environment where maybe they're asking for volunteers, or someone's asking you to do something outside of the scope of your job description or your work, which you would normally happily do, it's really important for you to check in with what am I trying to accomplish here? And does this A, help me accomplish it, or B, help me go above and beyond within the scope of the things I'm looking to accomplish? If it's over here and moving you in this direction and not helping you go above and beyond on the goals that you already have set out for yourself, then it's probably worth it for you to pass up on that opportunity. Maybe say no, maybe say later, whatever it is, but always have those goals and values as your checkpoint, as your okay, does this align with this? Yes. Okay. Yep. I'll take that on. I can do that. That'll just help you keep from overcommitting yourself in the interest of excellence, and then ultimately not be able to deliver excellence, which will be more demoralizing to you than just saying no to something in the first place would be. Now, the other blind spot to look out for is that your desire to receive recognition for the impact of your work can sometimes appear to be attention-seeking to others, or self-centered, as we mentioned kind of in the beginning. It might sound kind of silly, but checking in with yourself and really sitting with the question of what is enough attention for me? What is enough recognition for me? You have a tendency to go above and beyond. You have a tendency to want more. But it's really important to get clear on what is enough. And when you can identify what enough is, then you won't have to be in this perpetual cycle of seeking that approval, that recognition, that celebration, whatever it is, because you can check in with yourself and be like, hey, we've gotten a lot of recognition. We're good. Let's just keep doing the work. It'll keep coming. The other side of this would be to really focus on like spreading the love to your colleagues and to the people that you work with on their accomplishments. Or if you share accomplishments, you've worked on something together, make sure they're getting just as much recognition as you are. It may not be as important to them, but for you, just the practice of giving recognition to others can kind of help to mitigate this appearance that you're very like self-centered and attention seeking, when that's not necessarily who you are or what you are. It's just sometimes how that strength presents itself to others when it's not in alignment or when people don't know you well. So share recognition as much as you want it to yourself, and just see how that shows up and how that helps you maintain good relationships with your colleagues. All right, that's what we have for significance at work. In the next video, we will talk about significance in life.